Welcome to this course on applied linguistics. This is part of an effort by National Program on Technologically Enhanced Learning. In this introductory module number 1 for this course, we are going to introduce you to the course and the content that will be covered throughout. My name is Rajesh Kumar. I teach linguistics at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. My contact details are with you. Feel free to get in touch with me with the questions that are relevant in understanding the details of the course, the details of the materials that are covered online. I invite you to participate on the portal. All your questions will be certainly answered in a timely manner. Please participate. It's a big time learning experience from fellow participants as well. We take care of this portal very carefully and we answer each one of them properly. For the evaluation, the office will keep sending you information time to time. To introduce you to the objective of this course, it will deal with the applications of linguistics in understanding fundamental ideas in the domains of the use of language. I will simplify my objective even further. It's very simple. Whatever linguistics does, whatever we do in the domain of linguistics, in our attempt to understand language, a course on applied linguistics is about applications of those to the language use. As we will discuss, the use of language is the area in which we talk about society. Therefore, when we say applications of linguistic tools in the use of language, we mean all kinds of issues and difficulties that arise in the society in the domain of language use are part of applied linguistics. Some of the domains in which we find issues and we find a requirement for an intervention are second language acquisition, language teaching, the role of language in education, the questions of language and mind, language and cognition, and overlap between language and mind, cognition, and a significant domain that requires attention, particularly from the perspective of language use, is the domain of language and disability. And then, not last, language and computers. This is another significant domain where the use of language has increasingly been significant over a period of several decades now. Now, we are going to be covering only a few domains, but this is not a limited list of domains in which we use language. We want to be focused in this course, therefore, we are going to take up only few domains. And we are taking up the domains which are interrelated in some sense. For example, the domain of language and mind and language and education. At the same time, the application of language in machines, that is the domain of language and computers. They are all related in a very significant way, and our understanding of language is going to be very crucial in understanding these domains and how language is used in these domains. So, with this objective, we move forward and we try to understand language, linguistics, and then we will take a look at several definitions of applied linguistics, and we will go to the domains in some bit of details. So, we need to understand the word linguistics in applied linguistics. We have just talked about what we mean by applied, that is, we are going to be talking about applications in several domains. We will try to understand those domains as well. However, let us take a look at linguistics. This is one of the domains, this is one of the branches, and linguistics is an effort in understanding language in the field of linguistics. We study language in a systematic way. All kinds of systematic efforts in understanding language and things about language is part of linguistics. That's a broad definition of linguistics possible. It deals with the study of language. That is, the fundamental properties of languages that are common to all of them. Now, it is hard to conceive in the beginning, but you will be surprised that languages, though they look totally unrelated, and what appears to us is there is not much common among them, are related to each other in a very significant way, in the sense that there are lot of common properties among all the languages. Such properties are underlying to the structure of language. To make that explicit falls in the domain of linguistics. At the same time, the differences between languages is part of parametric study, and then there are parameters along which languages differ from one another. In other words, parameters are responsible for differences between languages, or the differences between languages are dealt in parameters of language. So, there are two parts. One is the principled part, which refers to the common properties of language, and parameter part, which refers to the way languages differ from one another. In the field of linguistics, both aspects are studied, its theories are studied or developed, and with the help of theoretical tools in various sub branches of linguistics, linguists study language. And the study of that, which is language, in several subfields of linguistics, and their application in resolving some real life issues is part of applied linguistics. Like I mentioned, once again, linguistics is an effort in making underlying facts about language obvious in a systematic fashion. That is what is done in linguistics. Some of the branches of linguistics that deal with different aspects of language are phonetics, phonology, morphology, semantics, and pragmatics. I will introduce these to you very briefly. Phonetics is the sub branch of linguistics which deals with the sounds, in particular mechanism of sounds. It studies physical properties of sounds and also studies how sounds are produced. Phonology studies sounds and their interrelations with one another. In other words, phonology studies features of sounds. Morphology is the domain in which we study how sounds are combined together to form a word. These are interesting domains or subfields of linguistics which deal with fascinating aspects of language. These are also fundamental domains of linguistics in which we study fundamental parts of language. Similarly, syntax deals with the language at the level of a sentence. The minimum unit of investigation in this domain of study of language is a sentence. Semantics deals with what a sentence means and how the fundamental properties of the structure of language constructs meaning. Pragmatics in a larger sense is about the study of the use of language, and I am trying to include pragmatics as part of the core branches of linguistics, because it is the investigation in the domain of pragmatics that tells us how we learn what to say and in particular what not to say. With all these comes a branch of study of language, or another subfield of a study of language is acquisition, and that in my opinion is one of the most fundamental aspect in understanding language. So, before we come to a discussion on language, let me talk a little bit more about linguistics to have a comprehensive idea about what people do in this discipline and its subdisciplines. After the core areas of the study of language like phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics and pragmatics, there are some areas, some subfields of linguistics which are interdisciplinary in nature. Interdisciplinary in the sense that they relate to at least two different parts of the study. So, what it means is, for example, fields like historical linguistics or sociolinguistics or psycholinguistics, anthropological linguistics, computational linguistics and neurolinguistics, and the list goes on. A vast list of different subfields of linguistics, whether they are fundamental, that are core or interdisciplinary, only tells you the huge, it tells you about how widespread the use of language is in our life, in what different ways language impacts our lives, and therefore, all such areas must be studied. So, in the area of historical linguistics, we try to study language change over a period of time and how that can be mapped historically. Also, history of language comes very close to this subfield. In sociolinguistics, we look at the interactions between language and society. We look at it from two perspectives, that is, we can study society with language, and also we can study language with language the way it is used in society. All that is related to interaction between language and society is part of sociolinguistics. And similarly, psychological aspects of language is parts of psycholinguistics, and how language is significant or can contribute in understanding machines or designing machines becomes part of computational linguistics. There are again various subfields of these interdisciplinary aspects of the study of language. We will not go into those many details of it. The reason why we want to understand core areas of the study of language and interdisciplinary approach in study of language is to get an idea of what is it that we do in the discipline of linguistics which helps us, which enables us to use theoretical tools and our understanding of language developed from those theoretical investigations, and to apply them, and how we apply them in looking at some of the real issues in the society, and where the direct applications of these theoretical tools is tested, which is the domain of applied linguistics. So, applied linguistics is also one of the parts of this discipline of linguistics. However, it is a domain in itself. It can in some sense contrast with the entire discipline of linguistics, because applied linguistics concerns the practical aspects of the theoretical tools in resolving real life issues. So, now we are going to come to understand what all we do in applied linguistics, but before that we would like to take a quick look at language. So, we started with understanding applied linguistics and objective of this course. In that effort, we looked at both what we mean by applied and what is linguistics that helps us do what we do in applied linguistics. But central to all of that is language, and therefore, a very quick introduction to language is relevant. We will try to familiarize you with some of the aspects of language in this course as well, and that are going to be relevant in understanding what is it that makes us equipped to deal with difficulties of real life in different domains, and in what ways we understand language. Just to build that background, we will be looking at some of such issues as well in this course. However, let us understand language. I invite you to think about it very carefully. It is such a natural thing to humans that it does not often draw our attention. It comes to us so naturally and so rightfully that it does not deserve our attention much. Without going into the details of that, I would start with the fundamentals of language, that it is part of us. As I mentioned, it is natural to us. It grows in us, and in the sense that it develops with us. It is hard to imagine our existence without language. There are very few things that we can do without language. In fact, in order to do anything, we need language, and it is language that defines humans. Such is the significance of language in our lives, in the sense that it is used, it is applicable in all the domains of our lives, in short, in everything that we do. Therefore, it is imperative for all, and I mean it with emphasis, it is imperative for all to understand the fundamental nature of language. So, to understand fundamental nature of language, there are two particular aspects that we need to look at. One is acquisition of language, that is learning of language, and two is the structure of language. Again, it is going to be quite stimulating for you to think how we learn language. And when we say how we learn language, I want you to take yourself back in time and think how you started learning language as a child. Therefore, it becomes convenient to talk about how children learn language. This is the area of first language acquisition, that is, and we call it first language because we begin with language at that stage, and the common aspect of that learning among all is all human beings are equipped to learn language. In fact, it is the only scientific discipline which begins with the fundamental premise that all humans are born equal, in the sense that all humans are born equipped with learning of language. We are programmed in such a way that we will end up learning language. Which language and what we end up learning is a matter of our interactions with our immediate society. So, the role of immediate society and our interactions with immediate society in learning what we speak is crucial. At the same time, how this input from the immediate society is relevant and gets processed in human mind is another aspect which is relevant in understanding how we learn language. How it gets processed in human mind and how human mind helps us speak and helps us learn language is really significant in order to understand nature of language. We will deal with some of these things in details in 1 or 2 modules in this course, but I only want to underline these things to you in this introductory part of this course, which invites you to think about these complexities involved in study of language and thereafter the application of that study of language, which we call applied linguistics. So, how human mind processes language is relevant and it is quite observable from our experience with the empirical facts in our lives, is that it is not that we speak only what we hear, it is not that we speak only what we learned, it is not that we speak only what we interact about. In fact, we have the capacity to come up with unlimited number of sentences of a language that we speak. We can't write all possible words in that language, but we have the tacit knowledge, underlying knowledge of all that is possible in that language. Such rich underlying capacity does not come only from our interactions in society. This underlines the role of human mind in learning language, and it is one of the aspects that we deal with in acquisition of language. The acquisition of language in the later phase of our lives is a different story, and therefore, I would want to make a distinction to begin with, that the acquisition of first language is significantly different from the acquisition of second language, and we may use the word learning for second language. So, we also see, and as second language learning or acquisition is one of the significant domains of applied linguistics, in which we see the application of linguistic tools. So, what actually happens is we try to deduct how post language acquisition works, and then see how it will be useful to understand what goes in learning of second language. This is how it could be, how the relevance of understanding what we do in the discipline of linguistics will make sense for people who want to understand what goes on in applied linguistics. So that's about the acquisition of language, where the two aspects are relevant, that is immediate society and human mind. Also what is relevant is the processing between the two, that is when human mind interacts with society, what aspects of processing are relevant for us to understand. That's about acquisition of language. The other part is the structure of language. As we just discussed, or I just mentioned, that language is one of the complex phenomena. That is, to understand that, let us go back to the point where we said there are underlying fundamental properties that are similar across languages, and then there are properties which are responsible for differences between all of them. So, when we elaborate this or when we arrive at such a conclusion, it is possible by looking at the structure of language. And to understand the structure of language, we need to look at least structure of language at the level of sounds, structure of language at the level of words, and structure of language at the level of sentences. When we uncover underlying properties of language at these three levels, we see the structural synchrony in language. For example, let us start with understanding what are the things that are common to languages, that is some common properties to language. See, all languages will have limited number of sounds, that is no language in the world has unlimited number of sounds. This inventory of sounds is very few. Among those sounds, most fundamental are vowels, and consonants are not fundamentals in the sense that we can have a word only with vowel sounds in all possible languages of the world. However, in no languages of the world we can have a word without a vowel sound. This is part of the fundamental properties of language which are common across languages. At the same time, sounds combine with each other to make a word in a particular way, that is, there is an underlying system, it is not random, it is not arbitrary. With that restriction on combination of sounds, we get potentially unlimited number of words in any given language. So, with a limited set of sounds, where not all possible orders are permitted, we still get practically unlimited number of sounds, unlimited number of words. This requires investigation, and therefore, we look at the fundamental properties of word formation at this level. And then the requirements of a sentence, in the sense that what makes a sentence, what are the essential components in making of a sentence. A very generic way of describing a sentence is its words together. Well, not too careful, but even a simpler look at sentence tells you that it is not just a random collection of words. There are rules that combine them together, and such rules are sometimes obvious and easily visible at the level of a sentence, and some of them are underlying. So, all of this is part of the structure of language, and when we look at both together, we get to understand nature of language. Nature of language is very simple. It is fluid, it is not countable. The fluid nature of language makes it an uncountable entity. It is only our cursory understanding that we can count languages. It's not possible to count languages. That comes from a very fundamental look at the nature of language. This is not an outrageous conclusion. And when you start looking at internal variations within language which are observable with open eyes, and with limited understanding of how language works, then you get to see the true fluid nature of language. And it is this fluidity of language which makes it multilingual. That is, each language is multilingual in itself. The speakers of each language will have a capacity to navigate and negotiate through all its varieties, and that is what is referred to as multilingual capacity. Now, this is a short introduction of language. This language and what I described to you about linguistics that linguists do in the discipline of linguistics is to study these parts of about acquisition and structure of language and the use of language. So, acquisition and structure are part of the formal study of formal properties of the study of language, and use of the language is part of the functional domains of language. What we derive as theoretical aspect of language from the study of the two, that is formal properties and functional properties, is what we apply in understanding real issues involving language in the real world, that is society, and such a domain is called applied linguistics. So, in short, let us take a quick look at what people have said about applied linguistics and what it means. So, like we have established so far, using what we know about language, about its use and about how we learn it, is what is all about applied linguistics. That is, using a use of what we know about language is what defines applied linguistics. Applied linguistics uses language related research in wide variety of fields like acquisition, teaching, literacy, gender studies, policy studies, speech therapy, discourse analysis, censorship, communications, media studies, translation, lexicography, forensic science, and just keep counting. It is about utilization of knowledge about the nature of language achieved by linguistic research. So, you look at any possible definition of applied linguistics which is available to you. That definition is going to come to two parts, that is what we know about language and what we do with language, and how these two things are put together is what we mean by applied linguistics. So, the defining characteristics of applied linguistics in some sense is also autonomous, at the same time multidisciplinary, but what is crucial is problem solving. It is about practical concerns that we have about the role of language in shaping questions that applied linguistics addresses. And the questions that applied linguistics addresses concerns everybody in the society in one shape or the other, and such is the significance of this discipline. Some of the problems that are related to language, and I have also mentioned this before, but let us take a look at this incomprehensive list once again. It's issues related to language learning. More importantly, or not in the order of more or less, at least equally importantly, issues related to language teaching. Literacy. Literacy is another big aspect of language which involves language, and it also involves another discipline which is policy study. And then most of the things about language learning, language teaching and policy get applied in dealing with literacy. Language contact, in understanding language and culture, language policy as I just mentioned, assessment, use, technology, interpretation and pathology. These are the related, these are the domains in which we see language related issues, and we will be dealing with a few of them to understand. There are some typical questions that applied linguistics will address, and I am just trying to put a few of them here. That is, how can we determine the literacy level of a population? These are complex questions and are located in language, which itself is complex. But we can look at these questions with the understanding of what we know about language to make some sense out of it. So let's keep in mind that the key word is application in this course. Some of the words that are going to be relevant are application, linguistics and language. Of course, and few names of the domains where we use them. We are going to start with a small introduction of language, that is the kind of introduction which is going to help us understand nature and structure of language first, and then we get to how we apply them in different areas where we see language related problems. We will be available, like I mentioned before, all the time, round the clock. Send us your question through our portal. We will look at each one of them and we will answer each one of your questions. Please look at associated reading materials with different modules which deal with different aspects of this course. Thank you.